Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Good evening. Welcome to Planet Comicon Kansas City TV, PCKC TV with Talking Comics. It's our live stream, Wednesday night live stream with our good friend Christopher Jackson, the owner and CEO of Planet Comicon Kansas City. Chris, welcome back. How you doing?
Doing fine in these odd times there, John. Thank you.
Yeah. Odd, unprecedented, all sorts of other superlatives that we've been taught to use over the last couple of weeks, right?
There you go.
Well, let's bring in Mr. Binderup, William Binderup from Elite Comics.
He's hiding here somewhere.
He is hiding. So let's get him on. Let's get him on. Let's get him going.
There he is.
That's a hard thing to hide.
There you go, William.
William, it's good to see you, man.
A panel van to hide him.
We got to send him a new light next week there, John.
I don't have my studio lighting. I look all pale.
Yeah, you're fine.
Hey, I dig the shirt too, by the way. I love that. The
Supergirl.
There you go.
Supergirl.
You're like the evil supervillain in a lair. You're kind of in the shadows a little bit, talking into the camera.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've been reading some strange tales with early Hydra stuff, and that's how they do it. You know, the leader is kind of lurking in the background. So
I should have my dog here with me so I can.
There you go.
Exactly. There you go. That actually worked really well.
So for you folks who don't know William, of course, William is our good friend over at Elite Comics, a good friend of Planet Comicon over the years. And William, it's been kind of an interesting week in the comic world for you all. There's a lot of interesting news that is popping up nationally, locally. All sorts of fun stuff. So we're going to get into a little bit of that. Before we do that, though, let's do a quick shout out to our sponsors with Planet Comicon Kansas City, our good friends at Nebraska Furniture Mart, Boulevard Brewing, U.S. Army, KCWE, where we love to see a lot of our favorite superhero programming, Geico and UMB Bank, Xfinity, 5 Hour Energy, T-Mobile, Kansas City Mavericks, Kansas City Live, and Oklahoma Tourism. Good folks who are supporting us during these times, and we want to give a little bit of love back. So with a lot of the kind of housekeeping out of the way, William, let's jump into a little bit, man. There was a really interesting interview / meetup conversation that happened yesterday with Diamond CEO Steve Jeppy.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting quote that came out of that one. And I'd really like to kind of get some of your feedback, because I know this is still kind of being parsed through the community right now. But the quote was, "I don't think you can destroy the industry in 2 months." And it's a really optimistic outlook. And I think, we had that conversation. I know you watched the interview, and Chris, I know you did as well. I'd love to just get some quick takes on this, in terms of, some of the things that are happening right now.
Yeah, I agree with him. I don't think you're going to kill. This is the first time we've had a pandemic, but it's probably the 50th thing that everyone said would kill comics. The end of comics has happened like every 3 years since 1950.
Right.
Nothing seems to kill it, but man, everyone thinks it's the whatever this thing is. That's the end of comics. Or they act like. I thought it was really interesting. They were talking about not the Jeppy guys, but other people like. Yeah, it's really a bad thing. This pandemic's really hurting comic shops. I'm like, have you seen the rest of the world? It's kind of killing everybody. It's not like, comics are like particularly affected by it, try owning a restaurant.
Hmm.
I mean,
This has not been very targeted in the damage it's causing.
no, it's everybody.
I think the only people really surviving well are the people with loads and loads and loads of money who want to buy real estate and things. So.
Or the guys selling hand sanitizer or toilet paper.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So, I mean, yeah, well, you bring up a great point. I mean, like, digital publishing was supposed to kill comic books, right?
Yep.
The
TV was going to kill it.
Right. I was going to say the MCU and all these the moves into film was supposed to kill comic books. All these things are not happening. You see the large publishers, kind of hitting pause. You see the indie publishers obviously kind of hitting pause, but things are starting to change a little bit in that regard too, right?
Yeah, we have now a tentative, at least. Well, I mean, it's a ship date. Anything could happen in the world we live in. You can't say anything's definitive anymore because anything can happen. But theoretically, we will have new books on May 20th.
Woohoo!
It's going to be a 2-month pause, and we'll get new books on May 20th.
That's awesome news. So for you, let's get into a little bit more about Elite here and talking about what that's going to mean for you, because there was obvious. I mean, it's lots of news happening the last couple of days. So there was even some more hyper local news that we want to touch on here in just one moment, though. One of the things, when we first started doing these live streams, Chris said that he really wanted to get in there and started to support some of the exhibitors and retailers, creators.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
And yes, I do want to support the exhibitors, the retailers, the creators, the artists, everyone that comes to Planet Comicon Kansas City. So.
Yeah, so let's talk about this first group here a little bit, Chris. This is a really interesting group because I don't think we have so much to promote when we're talking about this stuff that sometimes we don't always get to, when we're putting the show together, we don't always get to give everybody as much love as we want to. So the beautiful thing about this time right now is that we do get to give them some of that love. So this first group that we'd like to talk about is the authors at Word Wraith Books. It's a really, really cool collective they've got here.
Yes, these are some exhibitors in our Artist Alley area. They purchase space in Artist Alley and promote their works. It's a group of authors and a collective. It's J.R. Frontera. I see we have a little typo problem there, but that's all right. And several others in her Word Wraith community. And we're very happy to have their support at Planet Comicon and very happy to get word out about their product. And I know J.R. has a new book she's recently published, and before very long, I'll have the name of that book in front of me and I'll promote it. So. Yeah.
And all of them are great. These are fantasy authors, sci-fi authors, folks who really kind of keep that genre moving along. And they're doing it in a different way, which I think is really cool than just, the large publishing houses. So it's a little bit more indie and it's a little bit more, kind of underground. But definitely give their stuff a look. Go take a look at Word Wraith's website and check out those authors for sure.
Well, it was not that long ago that Planet didn't have authors. And the authors didn't really think, comic convention, that's not my thing. And then they come to Planet Comicon and sell 20 or 50 times as many copies that they sell at a book convention. Now they're like, I didn't realize this was this. Like, who's the Star Wars author you had last year or the year before?
And I'm just trying to think of his name. My mind's just drawing a blank.
Well, I know we have. Timothy Zahn was.
Yeah, Timothy Zahn. Timothy Zahn came out.
Brought what he would bring to a normal signing and sold it out in like 30 minutes.
Yeah,
he could have brought 50 times as many books. He just had no concept of like what it is to go to a comic convention and having written Star Wars books. He's like, I want to come back next year so I can actually bring a pallet of books and make some dough.
Yeah.
And he was scheduled to do just that. And fate intervened. But he will be back. Everyone we had invited will at some point make it to the show.
And I know you're working on that really hard, Chris. It's interesting times for all of that type of stuff right now.
And by the way, J.R. Frontera has a book that came out just recently called Bargain at Brave Bank. So I'd like to promote her book. I saw a post from her a while ago, and it showed a picture of all the books she had ready to go to the con. Well, I guess I'll put those away for a few months. And I'm like, well, maybe we can help her sell some of those books that she would have sold at Planet if we would have had the show. And I'm sure other authors from our collective have the same thing. They have their own books out. So
Absolutely.
go to their website, find out what they have.
Absolutely.
I'm just glad you're doing this, your PCKC TV, instead of a commercial that begins with, in these difficult times. If I see one more in these difficult times commercials, I'm going to barf a rainbow.
I say it a little too much, but I'm not.
No, I've never heard you say it. We're just like, hey, here's people. Let's promote them. Not like, in these difficult times, buy a Toyota. I don't understand their advertising, but
you're very influential, William. I got to go and buy a Toyota now. So. You're very convincing.
Well, hey, all right. So before we hit the break, though, I do want to kind of go back.
Well, we're having a little problem getting John to be consistent on there.
Oh, am I back?
You're back.
You are back. If you disappear again, I'm going to start showing books out of my collection. So.
Oh, this is going to get dangerous then. But you know what? That's what everybody wants. I'm going to go ahead and quit a few additional applications on my computer here, just to clear things up. So, all right. The question we have. Big news coming out of the Kansas City, Missouri mayor's office today. They've kind of announced some changes that'll be taking place here in the next couple of weeks. William, I'm kind of curious, as you've kind of reviewed some of the stuff, I know you're keeping your finger on that pulse. What's this going to mean for Elite? What's the plan for you in terms of the store, how that's going to work? And then, as you mentioned earlier, there's going to be new things that are going to be popping up too. So, new titles coming out. What are things going to look like for you in the next few weeks?
Well, it looks like the Kansas governor announced today, Johnson County is going to match Jackson County and go till the 15th keep the businesses closed. I'm not saying I'm thrilled about that, but it is kind of perfect timing for me. Because we'll be theoretically out of this lockdown on the 15th, and that next Wednesday is the first Wednesday of new books. So if we can not do another one after this 15th, it's going to be kind of kismet for me. Yeah.
Now, do you see? I mean, some of the things that they're talking about in terms of how many people could be in a space, all that sort of stuff. You feel comfortable with all that? Is there anything?
Yeah, I ordered a sneeze guard for the front counter, and I've been stockpiling hand sanitizer, and we will, the only day really that there's crowds is Wednesday. Otherwise, it's not more than 10 people. We'll have to, keep people separated and go about that. I don't want to get it from anybody, and I don't want to give it to anybody. So we'll do whatever we need to do. But I think the 15th will be. That's pretty much 2 full months. I think that's pretty good. Pretty good spacing. And
what's your general feeling though? I mean, as you look at to open up the shop again and welcome the regulars back and have people back. I mean, what's kind of going through your head? What do you think is going to be different as people kind of come through?
I don't know, but I'm hoping that people are going to feel the same way I feel about it. I'm more appreciating them. Having sat in the shop by myself all day, every day, just me and the dog packing boxes, is boring and terrible. I miss having people in there to interact with and people coming in to chit chat. The interactions I get with them on the phone and on the internet of ordering stuff, they're all itching to get back in the swing and come back in the shop. That was their comic people. Wednesdays like their jam. That's our midweek thing to keep. You got to go to work for a couple days, then you get Wednesday, then there's only a couple more days and it's the weekend.
Yeah, hump day. You get something new, something interesting is kind of going on. I mean, so much of it is an escape for people, right? I mean, it's such an important one too, and it's also ritual, right?
Yep, that was the only thing that had me worried is the 2 months would break people of the habit, but it hasn't. I get 20 or 30 messages a day of like, is there any updates? When are we coming back in? When are we getting new books? When can I get this stuff? And, we've been putting up like must reads and, people were, I haven't read that graphic novel. It came out 25 years ago. I'll order one. And, people are still doing fundraising for the toy drive and everyone's been super cool with that. And so hopefully life will get back to normal. Out of all this stuff, you have to close your store, you have to social distance, all that. Really, the main thing I've had the most problem with is touching my face. I touch my face constantly. I was totally unaware of it until they said, "Don't touch your face." Now I'm like, "Oh, I'll keep my store closed."
The question I have is, are you any good at not touching other people's faces?
I'm okay with that. I don't need to touch anyone else's face. It's just not touching my own face is just a bridge too far. I can't do it. It's so insane.
We've already got some comments here. And by the way, for those of you who are watching the live stream, please comment, ask questions. I'm going to throw you guys into the mix really quick here. And so get your stuff cooked up there. Drop it into the that question bar on the side, and we'll get those rolling. Little love note here from Jen Greeley. Love all of you. 3 hearts.
Thank you so much, Jen. Miss you.
They're talking about you.
That is the woman of 1,000 costumes.
Yes.
There you go.
Never
She's everywhere. I remember seeing her down at WonderCon a couple years ago doing photography thing while wearing a costume. So
I dig the avatar. The avatar is pretty awesome there. So I think this is another one. I think this sums it up right here. Kate Cook. Kate, welcome back. Saw you last week. Wednesday is Nerd Barbershop.
Yep.
Right? Nerd Barbershops. This is when you guys you talk crap on everybody and you talk about comic books and you talk about what's coming up, and then it's all free game, right?
Oh yeah, everyone's got you got to bring though if you're going to come Wednesday evening, you got to bring your A game.
There you go. And then Matt Thomas is joining us. He says he is in solidarity of you not touching your face as well, William. So yeah. J.R. Cook, I didn't realize how much I licked doorknobs until this. I mean, these are things that we learn about ourselves in quarantine, guys.
Licking doorknobs. All right.
Licking doorknobs. And thanks. Hey, Rachel saying, I miss everybody. There you go. We all miss you guys too. We want to have
the one thing about getting back into opening the store up, the one thing I haven't quite wrapped my mind around is kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be a tyrant and say the comic shop is open, but you can't really bring your kids. That seems insane.
Mm-hmm.
But kids are kind of gross and covered in germs and do gross stuff and then touch everything. The window guy will come clean my door, and by the end of that day, I'm like, how did 5 kids put their lips on the glass of the door today? All these face marks and tongue marks and all that. I'm trying to figure out exactly how I can word you can bring your kids, but you need to keep a rein on them. They can't be just touching every old thing with their old gross hands.
I'm trying to wonder how you only got 5 sets of lips on that door instead of 10, though. I mean, if there's a door, if there's something to be done that a kid can do, they're going to go after it.
Yeah, it might be more. They could be stacked on top of each other. I don't know.
I understand those lips that are below the bar there, William. What about the 10 or 12 sets of lips that are up around, this?
Grown people. Or I'll see like a handprint on the glass. I'm like, how gross are your hands? Use a full, complete, greasy handprint on something. You're like,
these are friends.
Fried chicken. I guess I'll go to the comic shop.
That's the hard part about it is when you run the Nerd Barbershop, William. These are your friends that you're talking about.
I know. I need that blue liquid at the barbershop to like get everything in.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about some other folks here. Let's talk about some artists, Chris. These are some cool folks that we've.
I know them. Artists.
Yeah, artists.
They help the show a lot. Rob Davis has been coming to the show. I don't know 21 years maybe. Great supporter of the show. Nat Rogers, absolutely. So. Nat's
got some great stuff. I was checking out his website earlier today, and he's got some funny stuff. This is the one that I caught that I just loved. I just absolutely loved this piece, and he does a lot of really humorous stuff.
Rob did a lot of our graphics early on in the early days of the show too. He helped us out a lot back in the earlier years. Back when Kirk Critton was more involved, Rob and Kirk were very good friends, and Rob did quite a bit of our graphics. So
super cool.
We've appreciated his help for many years now.
Yeah. A couple more Bob the Artist. I love this series of the She Can Do It series. I love the Sarah Connor in that classic Rosie the Riveter pose. It's pretty awesome.
I kind of looked at his poster series there and decided that I needed a show with all those women at it. And I looked into
man.
it.
Wow.
And It's not impossible. It's not.
It is impossible.
It's possible. It's harder now.
Well, Carrie Fisher's kind of impossible.
That would be rough. That would be
okay.
rough.
Carrie Fisher. There were 4 when I saw it. There, Carrie Fisher's there. One of those. I was looking at Lucy Lawless and
Pam Grier up there, Foxy Brown,
Linda Hamilton, Sigourney Weaver, and Agent Carter.
Haley Atwell.
Haley Atwell. God, how can I not remember Haley Atwell's name? She's from the Kansas City area, has been to my show, an amazingly nice woman. So that's the 4 that I saw originally when I was at his booth. And I thought, let's get those 4 to the show.
Nice.
So.
And Jason Metcalf, obviously, some fantastic, just great cover work and stuff like that. So we'll be posting these out like we have in the past. We'll be posting these out, sharing links and all that sort of stuff. So we want to represent folks a little bit more visually, I think, than we have in the past, in the last few live streams. So you can see a little bit more of their work and see how incredible these folks are. But definitely check out their portfolios. They've got some amazing stuff happening. So, Chris, I hear Chris rumbling around in his basement.
I just wandered a little bit because I saw Tim Comer put up a question on the side that said, what are some of your favorite covers?
Yeah.
So I decided I need one brief aside, and I wandered over because I knew I'd pulled a couple of them out. And this is one of my favorites.
Oh, let's take a look.
Amazing Spider-Man number 50. Spider-Man No More. John Romita cover, one of the most famous in the history of comics.
Signed by Stan Lee.
Yeah, signed by Stan Lee. So there you go. That, Tim, is one of my favorite covers. So it's hard to say. There's so many of my favorite covers. Hey, this is a good one, too.
Oh, yeah.
Cover Conan number 1. Back in the early 70s, it was the hottest item around. Barry Windsor Smith art. So these are some of my favorites.
Well, let me ask this. So we're, we're talking a little bit about this, and let's shift away from current events. Let's get a little bit more. Let's get a little deeper into the comic stuff.
Okay.
What's the biggest difference between comics today and comics when you two both first started reading them? Not even collecting them. Not even. I mean, just just kind of came into your consciousness. What's the difference between now and then?
I really think it's the modern stuff is the way stretched out storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I remember the comics I loved was an 80-page giant, whatever it was, that would say on the cover, in this issue, 3 complete stories. Because I was buying my comics at TG&Y, which is kind of like a drugstore place. It was like 75th and Metcalf.
Totally remember that.
And it's not like you could go get the next issue each month. It was kind of random what was there.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was a story that stretched over a bunch of issues, you were never getting all of them. So I have a fondness for like one and dones or short series, but man, they don't do that anymore. They like six issues is the least, and they like to go 12, 18 issues on these stories. I mean, it's because a lot of it's because the stories are aimed at older people now, not kids, but I do have a fondness for like the condensed storytelling of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Chris, what about you? I mean, what's changed for you? What's the biggest difference that you see these days?
Well, I don't read many of the newer comics. So my older comics, I'm with William. I like things that are 1-issue stories or 2-issue stories. And back in all the early Spider-Mans, Avengers, Fantastic Fours, Green Lanterns, Flash, virtually all of them were 1 issue or 2. That's in 2-part stories, Spider-Man 11 and 12. For instance, X-Men 12 and 13, things like that. And then they had the long 4-issue storyline of Amazing Spider-Man 53, 4, 5, and 6. But like 4 full issues was a long story back then. And I really liked that. Being able to very quickly read complete stories. So I agree with William on that.
Yeah. Is there a trend in comic books today that you kind of look at and go, God, I kind of wish they wouldn't do that, or is there something that you used to see back then that was, William, you talked a little bit more about the kind of the one and dones, some of the, that type of stuff, what are some things come back?
I think there's like a skill that the new guys, a few of them do. One of them is Jason Aaron, who, lives here.
Yeah.
Is the ability to write single issues. A lot of the guys now, it's a graphic novel broken into 6 or 12 parts.
Mm-hmm.
So occasionally you will get an issue of the comic that not that much goes on, It's not a great issue, but in the totality of the story, it was necessary.
Exposition.
Yeah, but if they were really good, the old guys had to give you a beginning, middle, and end in each issue.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have an overarching story that would last a long time, Peter Parker trying to keep his identity secret or whatever. But they told us a full story in each issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the guys that are writing now, because I think they're told to, and they learned to write towards the trade paperback and graphic novel, because both the company wants to sell those and those creators want to sell those. That's how your work lives on after the issue, so you can keep getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
If you write a great issue, it sells for a month or two. Well, it sells for 1 month. You get your order and it's done. But if you write, Watchmen,
mm-hmm.
you can make $100,000 a year on that for the rest of your life.
He's doing all right.
Can give that money up because you're a crazy person, but either way.
What about things that you see that you really enjoy about comics? That are more of the new trend. And Chris, maybe are there things that you look at today and go, "Wow, that's really unusual," or "Boy, that's something I never would have thought of," growing up and just getting into comics?
I'm not thinking of things specifically offhand for that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess a big trend, not in superhero comics, but in the past, nothing existed like they have now of the true to life kind of autobiographical comics.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge deal, especially for the YA.
You talking about March or something like that? Are you talking about
again?
You're talking about March? John
Well, yeah, those are real biographical, but I mean like these where there's no magic, there's no superheroes, it's their relationship books or family drama books, or even the ones that are written for kids are more school shenanigans or whatever, but
there we go,
nothing fantastical in it. It's just straight a straight story that appeals to a person because they can relate to it.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting. I remember when I was growing up, my gateway into some of these comics. I was a early kind of collector, more of a reader, I guess, of G.I. Joe. And I was playing with the toys. I was watching the cartoon. It made sense to, read the comic. That's whole sort of concept of, transmedia storytelling. The toy, the movie, the blah blah blah. Wear the hat, get the lunchbox. And then there was probably about a time when I was, I reached about 14, 15, and I was going by the newsstand and I was going to grab my G.I. Joe comic. And then I saw something there called the Nom,
Yeah.
And to me, I was so into that sort of military kind of, storytelling, stuff like that. It's like, oh, this is kind of interesting. What's this about? I want to learn more about, military history in Vietnam. And that one totally just blew my doors off in terms of what sort of comic book storytelling could be, because they're actually pulling from a lot of real stories from vets, and dramatizing those in the comics. And it's just, to me, the idea that you could do that type of storytelling in a comic book really just changed my perception of comics forever there.
Yeah, I think of someone like Harvey Pekar, where no one before that would ever think you could make a comic of this dude's fairly depressing, mundane life, but it was a depressing, mundane, deeply examined life.
Right.
And he put on paper. And I think after he did that, then people started to tell more like personal stories about their own life,
Yeah. And then it's interesting. I found it. What was the movie? It was with Paul Giamatti. I forget what it's called, but he played Harvey Pekar in that movie. Yeah, and that story to me, and his background, just as a comic creator, is just fascinating to me too. And then he met R. Crumb on the fly because they were both obsessed with buying jazz records. Yeah, and then he worked on his comic and all that stuff. That was, he's an interesting dude. It's just, I thought it was really different and changed comics that you could write something about
just a regular life.
Yeah. CJ, kind of chiming in here. And these are some of these I don't know. Captain Ginger, Ed Piscar, Matt Kint.
Oh yeah, man. We had Ed Pisker into the store for a signing in October.
Yeah.
He did Hip Hop Family Tree. It was like a 4-volume set of the history of hip hop, and then he did the entire history of the X-Men in 2 large volumes.
Mm-hmm.
And he's more of he thinks of himself as a cartoonist, not a comic book artist, but he's really, really, really good.
Yeah. Wilson G.
American Splendor, thank you.
Yeah, there you go. The crowd saves us. Kim was right there too. You both get the answer. You're both correct. Prizes, points. I don't know how many points. I don't know what the points go for, but you both got points. So there's some really there's some interesting things, some really interesting trends here. Hey, Chris, let's keep the love train going here with some other folks from Planet that we haven't seen in a while that we hope to see again real soon. These are some of your retailer friends. These are some folks that have been coming for a little while here and there.
There we go. Acme Comics. They're out of Sioux City, Iowa. They got they won awards for many years for their store. They didn't do Planet early on because they did so many other events in the Midwest. I convinced them to come to Planet, 10 years ago. They've been coming back ever since. They're very loyal to the show. And Corey Glaberson at Real Art Collectibles. Man, Corey is one of the longest live dealers at Planet. I think he's been around since almost the beginning, if not the beginning. So with posters and prints and all kinds of different really interesting, scarce, rare merchandise. So I really appreciate their support of Planet.
Yeah, and so a couple more folks here. Fair Comics
and Fine
Comic Collectibles.
Yep. They both
some more of the retailers that come to Planet Comicon.
Yep.
So few of the harder to get titles and all sorts of good stuff. So these are folks that we just want to make sure are getting the love during these times. And when the time comes for them to come back to Planet, we look forward to having them. So let's talk a little bit more about. I want to get a little nerdier with some things here, and I think we have a great question here. CJ, let me go back and find this one because I don't know how we can not talk about this today. This is a really important one. How about our own Andy Parks and Extraction on Netflix? Local boy does good.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Chris? What do you got to say? I know we want to have Andy. Hopefully we'll have Andy on a future episode here of Talking Comics.
Andy would be here tonight, but he's literally on another stream right now. So
right.
he couldn't join us tonight. We're really happy for Andy. Andy is another person that did graphics for me very early on. He did some of the first flyers for Planet way back in 1999, 2000, 2001. And he has been a big supporter for literally the entire length of the show. We're very excited for the success. Extraction, based on his novel, his graphic novel, and I'll pronounce it wrong. Ciudad? That's right. Ciudad is number 1 on Netflix right now, and stars Chris Hemsworth, which might explain part of it. Sydney was very interested in watching when Sydney and I sat down. Said, I'd like to watch this, but the body count's going to be kind of high, Sydney. She says, don't care, Chris Hemsworth. So, yeah. And,
my favorite part of it is Chris Hemsworth in it he's a killer, and he's guilt-ridden, and he's vaguely suicidal and an alcoholic, and on this, probably going to die mission. But his hair is
on point.
Perfecto. He's like, I got to go rescue this kid. I'm probably going to die. Let me run by the beauty salon real quick and get the fade tightened up. Then I'll go into war.
And apparently he stopped in at points during the film and had it redone. So,
I mean, he's like diving off cliffs into water. And when he gets out, perfect.
Right. Excuse me while I do a few push-ups just to get the veins popping a little bit on this close up, that type of thing. Chris Hemsworth is not, he's not tough on the eyes.
No.
Yeah.
Women enjoy him. I will say that. And I enjoy his acting.
Yeah. So people are checking out Dustin Evans. Who Dustin, you're behind the scenes and yet you're making comments. I don't know how this works. Extraction was really good. Go watch it. I have it on the watch list. I hear it is it's got some amazing close combat action sequences. So yeah, I am totally in for it. Hopefully, we'll have Andy on a future live stream so we can really dig into that book.
It's a little bit like if John Wick had more plot.
Well, I mean, and for Andy, that was a 12-year journey. I mean, that took a while for that whole thing to kind of come to life. So if you think that this stuff happens overnight, comic book to movie, is just, the way of the world. It is not. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of stamina to kind of move through that whole process.
By the time Andy
gets made, I don't think it's super hard to get something optioned.
No,
because they'll option anything.
Yeah,
but to go through then the 200 other steps to get it made like he did, that's where it's a million chances to be real.
Right. The optioning is, I mean, that's a buying process. A lot of studios and a lot of folks will do that kind of in bulk, grab those rights, sit on them, do whatever, and then it's almost like investing.
It is difficult to get things made. I know. I work pretty closely with Frank Mastromoro at Aspen Comics now. And they've been optioning the rights to some of their properties like Fathom and Aspen. And they're now getting really close to having those made into either animated features or some films too. So
yeah,
but they probably had them optioned for 15, 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a long process for them as well. But I'm sure we'll have Andy tell us about his process. Someday we'll have Frank on here. He can talk about the process of optioning Michael Turner's work. It's certainly a process, and it takes a long time. So,
hey, Chris, I got to do this. We got a guest suggestion, so just going to throw that into the we'll throw that into the pile of suggestions that you have. I think it's bigger than your comic collection. Is the suggestion box, right?
Well, yeah. Chris Hemsworth is one of the really pricey guests, which some shows kind of specialize in, and we don't. It's possible I'd have someone like him back, but this convention world is going to have to settle back into normalcy before I could consider that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right now, no one knows what's going to be happening in the convention world in 3 months, 6 months, a year, and we needed to settle back to normal. And until people are comfortable gathering in large groups, we won't be back to normal, not fully normal.
Absolutely.
So, and a guest like him, his financial requirements are such that we have to have the full possible Planet crowd.
Right.
Well, and then those people need to, the Planet crowd needs to get back to full steam. And then 1,000 of those people need to wrap their mind around the most expensive autograph they've ever purchased in their life.
Okay, so let's, if I may, can I veer a little bit from comics and a little bit more into the Comicon side thing? So we got a question here from Logan, and this is he's never been to a Comic-Con before, so maybe we can do a little bit of education here. Why do we need to pay celebrities to get their autographs and pictures? I've never been to a Comic-Con before, and I just want to know.
Well, we do actually get that question sometimes. I've seen people say on the internet, in groups, in threads, "Hey, I already paid an admission. Why can't I get free autographs?"
Sure.
Well, the admission basically covers or helps to cover the cost of my putting on the event. Mm-hmm. All the myriad of things that are involved in putting on the event, such as renting the facility, travel for the guests, AV, food, there's just a myriad of things. I could go on and on about it. All the various contractors involved, decorators. Mm-hmm. It does not cover paying celebrities. Celebrities make their money by selling autographs at the event. Mm-hmm. And that is a whole different animal. Celebrities would not come to the event if they were not making money off of autographs. And so they need to do that. The autographs need to be sold. They can't really be included in the price. There are shows that do that. Mm-hmm. And I know some shows that have, you buy $1,000 ticket and you get in, you'll get some autographs with that. Yeah. You get some photo ops. But at the basic price of admission, that is not nearly enough to pay celebrities to be at the show. Yeah. So
Logan, it's a good question. It's a good
question.
It's part of the economics of how this works, and it's the opportunity for the artist to,
Well, I have an answer for that too.
Okay.
He says, "Why do you have to?" You don't.
Oh,
there's a million other things to do at the show without buying autographs.
True.
And you can go and have a blast for 3 solid days and never buy any autographs. I mean, a lot of people love to get celebrity autographs. There's nothing wrong with it. But, I mean, I wouldn't want him, if he's never been to a show, I wouldn't want him to think, if I don't want to buy autographs, it's not my thing. You should go to the show. There's a million fun things going on, and, you know, hundreds of activities that are included in your ticket price that you don't have to buy an autograph to get into. You can go to all kinds of panels and demos and lessons and games and zillion artists, and you know, there's a lot of stuff to do to Comic-Con, and never buy an autograph if that's not your thing.
Yeah.
Good pickup there, William. Thank you for picking that up for me. Not to mention the after hours activities we have now, which we're expanding. And so far, we've tried not to have any additional costs involved with any of the panels, virtually any of the after hours activities, things like that.
Hanging up there a little bit.
We try to keep them.
Yeah. What Chris was going to say is that we don't do a lot of additional, we don't charge for a lot of those additional activities that we do at night. Some of those sort of add-ons. These are things that we do for the community, things that we do for the sake of just doing them because it's kind of fun, and it's, you know, it's basically a way to extend that Planet Comicon experience. So, you know, there's a lot. You're right, William. There's a lot of other things to do. I mean, with 450,000 square feet of display space, I think, what is it, over almost 8 football fields or something crazy like that. You know, we can do quite a bit. You know, and
there's still 420,000 square feet that's not celebrities,
right? So you think it's 60,000 square feet is dedicated to the celebrities? Is that what it is?
I could be picky about some of the numbers on the amount of space, but you're basically right. We have about a 400,000 foot exhibit hall.
There you go.
And about 80,000 of that is taken up in the celebrity area, plus some seating for food and things like that.
There you go.
So 300,000 plus of that is you can wander to your heart's content. There are artists, there are crafters, there are retailers. There's a myriad of things, and it's so visual. You'll find prints and posters and cosplay materials and books and that you can go look at all day long. You can't look at the entire exhibit hall in a day anymore. I remember at the old location, William, we used to talk about how many more people can we have come out? Can we possibly get any more at the old trade center? Because if only a small percentage of the population collects comics, how many people can we possibly get into the show? Well, we always seem to be able to get in more. So there's always more to look at. So
my favorite.
Well, let's talk a little bit about in our last block here, Chris. We want to talk a little bit about some of the crafters that you bring in. We got a trio of crafters here that we want to.
There we go.
The Artistic Dabbler. If you haven't seen the Artistic Dabbler's work, it's really cool. Custom earrings and jewelry. A fairly regular guest at Planet Comicon. Bandit headbands. So these are branded headbands for adults and children. So they do a lot of work with in terms of doing comic themed headbands, as well as sports themed headbands. Again, just another one of those folks who you wouldn't normally think of. You know, it's probably not the first to the top of mind, but you know, these are the hundreds of people that we bring in every single year. And then Grandma D's Corner, and Grandma D has a really cool Facebook setup and makes masks for kids and kids costumes. So cosplays for any age. And I think that's the coolest thing. And I don't think there's anything better than seeing a kid like totally decked out in some cool homemade cosplay and maybe even wearing a mask from Grandma D. So it's good to hear from those folks. And again, these are folks that they have their stores. We've got URLs. We'll be posting more information about them online after the show. So definitely want to give them some love as we move forward.
So, William, you were telling a story there. What were you starting to tell?
Well, remember at the old place, a concern was that we would max it out.
Yes.
That we would be beyond fire code. And I remember the last year we were there, Chris came up to me super worried. He goes, there's like 9,000 people in this room. I think we're way above fire code. We're going to get in trouble. I go, no, I saw the fire code. We're good for 12,000. And he's like, whew. Takes the rest of the day off. At the end of the show, we're closing up, and he walks by and he goes, that sign says fire code for 3,000 people. I go, I know, but what good is it going to do you to know that?
that last show at the Trade Center in 2012, I mean, you could barely move. It was shoulder to shoulder. It was insane. But people still enjoyed it. We did not get complaints. We just didn't. And I remember the iBots talked about they had to go out in the parking lot because there was no room in the hall for them at all, back by where we had the celebrities in the back of the room. But remember, those were the days where I had a 50,000 square foot exhibit hall, and thought I was doing real well filling it up. And now I have 400,000 square feet, which is 8 times that, and we still seem to fill it up pretty well. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty crazy back then, William. Pretty crazy. So
yeah.
So as we're starting to wind things down, we're starting to get to 8 o'clock here, but I do want to kind of keep talking. Let's keep getting some stuff and going back into more of the just kind of like your guys' relationship with books over the years. Chris, you talk a lot about X-Men. Chris Claremont, you talk a lot about those titles, and then you also have the things that you collect as well. Are there artists that are who are just as influential to you now as they were when you were a kid, or do those books mean something different? Has the meaning of those changed? Has your relationship with the book changed because you have the benefit of meeting so many of these artists. You get to book so many of these artists. What's changed from that time of being a fan to kind of in this position of do you still get starstruck? Let me ask that.
Oh yeah, when I first met John Romita, I had that feeling. Mm-hmm. I'll never get him as a guest. John is quite old now and really doesn't travel anymore. But I met him at San Diego and had him sign several of my books, and I was starstruck at that time. Mm-hmm. Because his were the main books that I remember from the 60s, because Spider-Man was my main character, and John Romita was drawing the covers. Now we have the benefit of having John Romita Jr. now, having worked for how long, William? 30 years plus in the business. Easy. And by the way, John Romita Jr. will eventually be a guest at Planet too. That's in the works. It's just a matter of coinciding a show that we're actually going to hold with dates that he has available. So, but things have evolved. I mean,
so obviously a little bit of issues with the stream tonight. William, what about you? Yeah. Same question. Are there, have you ever been starstruck by an artist that you've brought into the store for a signing, or somebody that you finally got a chance to meet after, reading their books for a while? Yeah,
John Romita,
my favorite cover of all time.
There you go. Somebody's talking about favorite covers. I found a copy of this floating around. Silver Surfer #4, very famous Silver Surfer Hulk Thor battle. So
that's my favorite cover of all time.
That is not the current price on that book, by the way.
I would pay that right now.
Why is it your favorite, William?
Well, Silver Surfer is my favorite character, but that cover, man, you just can't. That dynamic.
Put that back up. See that one more time. Yeah.
Crash into each other. That's just, man, that is my favorite. I print custom ceiling tiles that I have in my store. Mm-hmm. That's the first ceiling tile when you come inside my store.
Yeah, Skyrider of the Spaceways.
And as a fan, I dream of the original art for this cover, and I can't imagine. I'm sure we could find out who owns it and what it would go for now, but I would say at least $500,000.
Easy.
Yeah.
The original art for that. So.
I mean, covers now, they do a lot of cool stuff with covers now, and there's a million. They're obsessed with variant covers now, and there's a lot of cool variant covers, but man, you just can't. I don't see very many covers that are that dynamic. I mean, when you see that, it looks like Thor's about to crash that hammer into Surfer, and he's coming right into him. I love that cover.
Somebody created a cover recently that I had to do a double take on to figure out it was an homage, and it's the cover that would be this about 4 seconds later, where they have clashed.
Oh, really?
Yes, you'll find it on the internet if you search. I was looking for a copy of this at some point. I wanted a copy to read, and I couldn't find my own copies, and now I found 3 of them. But that's all right.
For you.
That's one of our old jokes, by the way. William will call me and say, "Hey, Chris, I got a customer that wants X book. I want Silver Surfer 4. Do you have a copy?" And I'll say, "Yeah." Then William's next comment is always, "Can you find it?" I'll say, "No."
Well, it's usually a pretty good narrowing down if he knows which room it's in.
There you go. There you go.
Like, yeah, that's in my basement. I'm like, yeah, that's like saying it's in Nebraska. It's not narrowing it down that much.
So the Ark of the Covenant is in a room that's easier to be found. Basically, is what we're saying.
I mean, it is in a room, and it's.
So what I want to do for a future show is I want you guys. I'm going to go ahead and set this up. I want you guys to go toe to toe I want like find the best box that you can, Chris. William, you find the best box in your stuff. I kind of want to see if you could like it'd be like kind of like two jazz masters kind of trading licks. Like, well, how about this one?
I don't know where all my stuff is. I do know where that best box is. Though.
Is this Rene Russo?
See, it's on towards the top, right?
Is this where Rene Russo?
I know where that one is.
Just underneath the Ark of the Covenant, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, this is a thresher shark. This is a tiger shark.
Exactly. Well, I was just looking tonight through a box that I had Stan Lee sign, about 100 books I had Stan sign when he was in town, and every one of those is worth looking at. They're great books. So
yeah.
And at some point, I'll show you some of the bound volumes. I really love bound volumes, where somebody takes the original comics and binds them into a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got some really interesting. My big regret is I had Hulk 1 through 6 and sold that. It was signed by Jack Kirby, and I sold it. What was I thinking? I don't know. Apparently, I used to need money to live on, so I had to sell some of my inventory. So,
but you're like one of the only people that loves bound volumes. Lots of people refer to those as ruined comics.
Well, it's true. It always puzzles me when I see a bound volume and someone is asking like to find a very fine price per issue on them, because the comic has to be trimmed and then either sewn or glued on the spine edge. So at best, each comic is fair at best. Yet people ask VG to find prices across the board. They'll add up all the VG to find prices and ask that or more. And that's always puzzling to me.
And then look how nice that cover is. I'm like, we accept that part where it's got 20 needle holes in it where it's sewn in.
This is what I regret. Things I regret. Okay, we'll go back to things that Chicago Comicon. I don't know whether it was Wizard at that point in time in Chicago at the center there in the suburbs.
Rosemont
Convention Center. And a dealer set up near me had a Batman #1 for $1,500.
Oh my God.
But boy, that thing had needle holes all up and down the spine.
Mm.
And I sat there and thought, I just can't pay that. This would be about 1992 or 3. And I'm thinking now, had I bought that book for $1,500, it'd be at least $50,000 now, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So my regrets. Oh, well.
My regrets of those shows is remembering passing up original art from classic Silver Age guys and running around looking for Spawn toys and variant covers and junk like that. And people were like, $300 for a Jack Kirby page? Wow, that's expensive.
San Diego, 1988, I believe. A dealer had almost all of Incredible Hulk #6.
Oof.
Steve Ditko art. I bought one page. Again, I've sold it since. But every page was pretty much there except the main splash page and a couple others. $250 a page.
Oh, my God.
And I could have bought, 15 pages from that book for $250 a piece, but I could only afford one at the time. So I bought it. I'm sure I bought something else. That's the show, though, where I bought from Chuck Rosansky several copies of Amazing Spider-Man 129 for $5 in near mint. So there were good things to spend money on back then. But that's the kind of thing that used to be available. That brings me to my one Steve Jeppy story. He was set up across from me at San Diego one year, and on setup day, it's hot in there. They don't have the air conditioning set up. I'm setting up my own display. We got backboards, we got books. I've been carrying boxes, and I'm just sweating and horrible. And Jeppy had been at his table. He wasn't there at the time, but one of his top people was there, and they were setting up a backboard. And across the top of the backboard were high-grade copies of things like Batman 1, Detective 27, Action, Superman 1. I mean, really key books in high grade. Some of these might have been Mile High copies. This is back, by 1992, 3 again.
Explain Mile High copies for those who don't understand.
Mile High Comics is a store in Denver, Colorado, owned by Chuck Rosansky. And in the early 80s, he discovered a collection. He got a call to go look at a collection in a home. Guy's name was Edgar Church. He had died. His widow was selling the collection. He went there and he bought around 22,000 comic books, starting from the earliest golden age. I mean, it had Detective 27, Batman 1, all that. And to this day, about 17,000 of those books are the best known existing copy of that book.
Okay. So Jeppy's got those set up.
Jeppy had some of those. So I'm looking at him, and the guy goes, "Oh, you want to see some of those?" And he grabs one. It was a key book, and he starts handing it to me, and it's in an open-topped Mylar.
Mm-hmm.
And he had no, you can look at it. I'm sweating just horribly, just drenched.
Oh.
And I'm like, I can't. No, I said, just take it away. I can't even get near that book. A drop of water in the top of that Mylar is going to cost somebody $50,000. So those kind of things don't happen anymore. You don't see those books, and if you see them,
sorry about that, guys. Yeah, a little bit of the stream is riding the struggle bus a little bit today. There you are, Chris. You're back.
Yeah. Well, I was. Okay.
I saw him the whole time.
Oh.
I think it's you, John, not me.
Uh-oh. Oh.
Yeah, you've disappeared on us on occasion. I try to keep talking when we're doing that.
Oh, all right. My apologies.
It's all right. No worries, John. Hey, we're just starting this out. We're excited to have you on and hosting us, and we appreciate it.
So literally the entire country is using the internet right.
That's right. I got the hamsters in the closet here that are powering my router, so I obviously have to feed them.
It's all right. I kept talking. I can talk nonstop. Sometimes I don't say anything interesting. We were talking about books I read earlier. Let's talk about a book that's since the 1960s that I read. I read Sandman when it was out. Oh my gosh. That's still a little old, but there's an example of Neil Gaiman creating an amazing story where every like 8 issues was a story, and they put out some books for each issue. But still, I still recommend Sandman as one of the greatest comics of all time. So if anybody wants to read something. And more recently, I've read like Cullen Bunn's Sixth Gun. Amazing stuff. So,
yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. So, Rachel Wilson Welch, sounds like you guys need to get organized. So,
in what way? There's so many different ways. To get our broadcast organized, to get our answers reasonably organized, to get our basement organized.
I think our comics.
I think it's the collection, guys. I think you've been challenged. I
did find a few things today. So here, the first Doctor Doom in Spider-Man 5. So
I'll pay that.
There you go, Stan Lee. What else do I? Now here's something that not everybody collects, but I do. I've got almost every issue of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I know you're very jealous, all of you, over that.
I won't buy that.
Yeah. So, and I was showing you guys before this, and this is a tough book.
That's
Big Strange
really
Tales
hard.
Annual 1. This came out in 1961 or 62. It's one of the earliest Marvel annuals. So I found that sitting away.
It's hard to get.
Yep.
Hey, I got one more question from the audience before we have to wind things down, but this is a really good one, guys. Where's the most unique place you found a comic where you least expected to find a comic that you wanted? Garage sale, thrift store, small town shop. Where's the most unique place?
I've gone to many, many, many estate sales, and I almost never find comics. And if they're there, they're crazy overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
But I did get a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 129 at an estate sale. And they had like 3 comic books. They had 129, the first Punisher, and 2 other books. And she had like $500 on that 129, which it wasn't worth that much because of the condition. But in the next room, they were selling guns. You got a huge gun collection. And I said, I want to get this book, but I only want to pay you a couple $100 for it. And she goes, you know what? I'm going to take it because if I don't get in there and start taking care of these guys with the guns, something's going to get stolen. So I got that book the price I wanted to pay because the gun guys were in the living room going crazy over all these antique guns.
Chris, what about you? Have you found something strange? Have you?
I find things everywhere.
Someplace you've been rumbling around and you found a comic that you really wanted?
I've gone to bookstores and little thrift shops and things for years and years. Every time I went to San Diego for the con, I'd stay an extra few days and go to every store. And I remember 20 years ago in San Diego, I went into a bookstore. It wasn't a comic shop. Looked around and I found a copy of The Adventures of Superman by Lowther from 1942 with no dust jacket on the shelf for $5. And that was a pretty good deal.
Wow.
So you might not be familiar with that book, but I think it's the first hardcover novel. It's the first novel done about Superman way back when. And it had some color illustrations. But I found dozens of things. I went to an auction in Iowa maybe 15 years ago where they were selling lots of comic books. There's a lot. And like they had Spider-Man, I don't know, 25 through 50 is one lot. And these were all VF or VF plus. And whoever was organizing this was not thinking their way through this.
Mm-hmm.
They did not advertise it well. There weren't that many people there. And I remember I got that lot for, I don't know, $10 a book. And I think they're, on average, I think I bought that lot 25 books for me, $250. I don't remember. Mm-hmm. And they're like $1,000 a piece books. And you just don't find that very often, particularly in auction, because this is a known auction house, but they're known to auction off like farm estates. They'll be auctioning off the china and the silverware and the farm equipment. They weren't used to auctioning off comics.
Yeah.
And they didn't do themselves they didn't do the owner a great service in the sense that they did not come close to maximizing the value.
Well, I think there's, though, because of the internet now, you can't, those days of finding like super deals like that at auctions are kind of a thing of the past, because it's just so easy for them to look everything up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you didn't have to like, oh man, we got to go find an expert to tell us what this is worth. They just, you know, look it up. Though I did go to a estate sale, so I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. It was a basement, a 2-story house, an attic, and a 2-car garage, and every wall of every room was covered with bookcases. This guy had 100,000 books, probably. He had probably 50,000 movies. And going through there, I got like signed R. Crumb books, signed H.R. Giger books, all this incredible stuff. I couldn't pick it up fast enough. I found the guy running. I go, man, if you would have let me spend 2 days in here, I could read you like an extra 20 or 30 grand. I go, did this guy die? He goes, oh, no. He goes, this guy's still alive. We took all the good stuff for an auction. He kept his favorite stuff, and this is what's left.
Wow.
Like, oh my God, what was good if this is the crumbs? It was crazy.
Yeah.
People were going with like laundry baskets, taking whole shelves of books, hauling them out.
Love it, man. That's crazy. Hey guys, we're gonna wind this down. Though we did have a question saying, who are these handsome nerds? And for everybody at home, these handsome nerds, Christopher Jackson, owner and CEO, Planet Comicon Kansas City, William Binderup, proprietor, Elite Comics. Guys, thanks again for just another fun hour talking comics, showing off.
Full disclosure, that's my very good friend Ashley. So.
Well, I didn't want. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. We could just say it was somebody completely random calling from on the internet.
I gave it up.
Nobody would have known that. And obviously, and thanks, Robert. Yeah, I need to go give some carrots to the hamsters. Running the router in the closet. Obviously, I need them better fed for next week. So we're going to start winding some things down here. We've got some really cool things in terms of some upcoming streams. Chris, you might want to talk about, well, every Wednesday, obviously we're doing the, we're doing the Talking Comics, but tomorrow we got something really special.
Tomorrow we have a very special stream at 7 p.m. I will be interviewing Rachel Scarston, Alice of Batwoman, and I will be, Kid Cadet and I will be talking with her and asking her about her career and all things Batwoman and all things Scarston. She has been a guest at the show before, and I have some ideas on how to approach some great questions for her. She's looking forward to it. She does not do very many interviews with folks. We're really looking forward to that. And she, by the way, has her own event that she's put together with a group of celebrities called HomeCon, and she's going to tell you a little bit about that tomorrow night too.
Awesome. And then on Sunday, we have, let me get this changed over.
I believe we have Strange Cat Cosplay, don't we?
We do. And
excellent. I the two really wonderful young women. So
yeah. And unfortunately, hang on a second. Let me get this to change off. My apologies for the technical.
So Sunday at 2 p.m. we will be having a talk with Strange Cat Cosplay. It is Victor Von Crow and Carly Bossmeyer. So we're looking forward to that. They are two wonderful crafters. They are very big supporters of Planet and make amazing costumes. So we can look forward to seeing them on Sunday at 2 p.m.
Yeah, that's gonna be a great one. And then you did mention that is with our good friends at US Toy, right?
I did not mention that, but why don't you go into that?
Yeah, so Jelly Bean, aka Mark Argenbright, but Jelly Bean with US Toy, Dustin Evans, they will be behind the controls on that particular live stream, and that's gonna be it's gonna be a lot of fun to kind of get a little nerdy about the cosplay and the crafting with some folks that are really quite talented with that. And if I'm stalling, it's because I want to get this graphic loaded in. This is called Me Tap Dancing. There we go.
There you go.
Our good friends at Strange Cat Cosplay. Amazing, amazing work. And then of course, we're going to do this again Wednesday nights, 7:00, because it's fun and you guys have great stories. And we're just going to keep getting nerdy with the comics for as long as we can. So
cool.
We can talk more about comic retailing then too. There's more of that Jeppy conversation that we could talk about a bit. So
yeah, I
I'm
definitely
curious
want
for
to get
William's
that.
take on some things. I'm curious to hear William's take on the variant cover phenomenon and the 1 in 200 covers and things. I'm very curious. Don't tell us now. Save it for next week, William.
There you go.
You'll be shocked to know
what
I have an opinion.
Yes, you'll have an opinion, and that was one of the things they talked about on Jeppy's stream. So.
We will also be working to be getting some guests lined up, some comic creators. So we're going to have some fun trying to get them into the mix and throw them into in the mix with all of you. Get some good questions going. So, Chris, William, thank you again.
This is a scarce one. Millie the Model Annual #1, one of the earliest Marvel annuals. Just wanted to get one last cover in there. There's some great. I'll page through this one with some of the cosplayers because the fashion is wonderful. So.
I love it, guys. Take care. Once again, many thanks to our sponsors for helping us and for coming along for the ride on this whole grand experiment that we call PCKC TV. We look forward to the next broadcast. We also have some fun stuff happening with our good friends at Nebraska Furniture Mart. Go to our Facebook page, check it out. All I'm going to say is cosplayers reading stories to kids. It's going to be fun. Trust me. We got Wolverine reading Grumpy Cat tomorrow at 2:00. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We have some cool things that are happening these days. So, gentlemen, take it easy. I'm going to take us away with this little bit of the rocket launch, and we'll talk again next week. And Chris, I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Take care, guys.
Thank you, William.
Be careful.
Mission sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11.